The reason so many people are not successful with print on demand is because they can't get to those 5 weeks, those 2 months without any payoff. If everyone made their first sale within the first day, everybody would be selling on Etsy. But the competitive advantage that people who are successful have is that ability to have that delayed gratification and do all that work without the proof it's going to work at the beginning. And that really helps you.
Hey everyone, welcome to another Coffee with Kittl episode. Today I have Christina with us from CU Online. Let me pull this up. If you guys haven't checked her out on YouTube, she is killing the game with tons of print on demand, Etsy advice, all things like that. So definitely check this out. We will link it down in the description. Christina, if you wouldn't mind, just before we dive into print on demand and whether or not it's oversaturated, maybe underneath that, like when we say print on demand oversaturated, I think what we really mean is like what underneath that is saturated, because it's never too late, I think, to get into print on demand. That should always be our kind of guiding key. That's what I believe. However, are there certain things we should stray away from? Now, before we dive into that, if you wouldn't mind just giving everyone a quick intro to who you are. Again, I just showed your YouTube, but maybe like what you have planned for YouTube. Yeah, just a little bit who you are, and then we'll dive in.
Yeah, so my name is Christina. I started print on demand I think just over 2 years ago now is when I first opened my store. I feel like I resonate with a lot of people who started because I had a slow start at the beginning. It wasn't like this major kickoff, which a lot of people kind of expect. So I can really help people at the beginning kind of get over that. Yeah, it takes a little bit, and it does require some hard work. And like you talked about, finding those more unsaturated niches. So it does require some research. For me, it took like 5 weeks to get my first sale when I started with print on demand, and kind of learned the hard way. When I first started my store, I thought I knew everything about Etsy. I had been on Etsy before, but print on demand is a totally different ballgame compared to some other products on Etsy. And so I kind of just started sharing online what I was learning when I was growing my store. I started sharing what I was learning on TikTok, and I was sharing my profit and what I was doing. And that kind of blew up, and people started asking for more help. So I started making more videos, which kind of led into this content creator side of what I do now.
Well, that's awesome. Let's talk about print on demand, oversaturated, undersaturated niches, getting into it. Now, I kind of want to, you said this, I didn't know that about you, about how long you've been in print on demand and maybe how long it took to even get a sale and get into it. Let's maybe start at that beginning before we talk about the specifics of what you did to really kind of make something work. So you said you had kind of a slow start, a slow burn. And I think a lot of us really do resonate with that. And unless you have the resources to bolster it, meaning you either have endless time or you have endless money, I think, like when we think about resources, like you have endless budget to just destroy Etsy ads so that anything and everything gets, seen. And I'm even experimenting with some Etsy ads right now myself just to see, or you have endless time where you either have, your 9 to 5 and you don't really have any other priorities, and you can just absolutely crush the game and list Etsy listings or Amazon listings or whatever. And then I guess underneath that, you'd be like, well, I'm also everywhere. I'm on Amazon, I'm on Etsy, I'm on Shopify, whatever. So it's either time or money kind of, right? But maybe you walk us through what that slow burn kind of looked like to you, and what kept you going, because 5 weeks kind of is a long time. I'm assuming you probably weren't running ads yet on anything, right? Okay.
So I had high hopes for Etsy. I actually had started in COVID a pet portrait Etsy business.
Oh, okay.
And that actually was lucky. That one got sales right away. It was mid-COVID. People were home. People wanted their pets. So I started doing that, and that was my first exposure on Etsy. With that, every single time I did or got an order, it was at least 1 to 2 hours of work afterwards
to do it. Yeah.
I wasn't charging much for these either. Plus I was working my 9 to 5. So I know the first Christmas that I did it, it was getting 20 sales a day, and I was working.
Oh my gosh. Really?
Yeah, the first Christmas did really well. After that, a lot of new competitors entered the market on that one, and I was kind of burning out. Well, I was definitely burning out on that one. And then I would just do portraits
Forever.
all night. And drawing on your iPad when you have neck issues is not great. Like I was stiff, everything hurt. I was like just trying to find any angle to be able to draw these in that didn't hurt. So that was like my first like, oh, I can make money on Etsy, but it's also.
But is it worth it? Yeah, is it worth it? Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't like worth it. And like more and more people were joining this market, putting the prices a lot lower. So to get sales after Christmas, it kind of started dwindling. And I actually found out about print on demand because I was looking for a way to like upsell these, because a lot of people, once I finished a portrait, were asking me, how do I print these? I was like, I don't know, take it to Walmart. I don't know, find Staples.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like, I don't know where you live. And then so I looked into how I can actually print these, and I found out about print on demand. And then I was like, oh, I can just print these for people, upsell it a little bit. I don't have to do the extra work since I've already drawn it for them. And I started offering them on mugs, on t-shirts.
There you go.
Yeah, but still, even with that, was like.
Then you have to do the work for each one of those, right? And then because you have to like kind of send a proof. Does this look okay? Whatever. And then you got to order it from whatever. So I mean, it's still some back end work. Yeah.
Yeah. It was a lot of back end work still, and I don't know when it clicked, but maybe I think it was a YouTube video I watched where people were just pre-designing them. I don't know. It didn't come to me until I heard about it like online. Right. And then I was like, oh my God, I can start making these without the customization part and then just start selling them. So that's when I created the Etsy store, like the separate print on demand store. But again, it was a whole different game when it wasn't these customized pet products, which was like super specific, because now there was no competition. And back then I didn't know how to stick out. Like I was starting with what I tell people not to start out with. First things that come to mind, like positivity t-shirts, teaching shirts,
right?
All the ones that every single person does. And I think that's why it took me so long at first to start getting sales. Like not only was I first learning like mockups, my designs weren't the best either. Back then I was just doing like using like the Canva template ones.
Sure.
I thought of one niche, something that I was in. I can see it now because I don't really design for it anymore. But my first like niche that kind of like kicked off was breath work. I'm super into like the cold baths and breath work and meditation things. And
oh, cool. So that's kind of like a sub niche of like self-care kind of.
Yeah, exactly. And like the people I know in breath work that go to these like breath work events and like classes are super passionate about it, but obviously not many people are in it. So there was nobody on Etsy really designing for it yet. So I started putting up designs around that, and that was like my first sale.
Okay, so that was the first sale from that niche then.
Yeah. And that one that kicked off was the one that kept selling. It started selling like once a week, still not like enough.
Now, was that a shirt or was it something else?
That one was a shirt, yeah.
Okay.
And that was the only one selling. I had about 70 listings up when I got my first sale. 69 of them never sold. That one was my go-to. So I started putting that on more products, creating more similar ones. And that's how I started slowly getting up in sales.
Wow. Okay. So you had 69 other listings over this 5-week period. Now, were you one of those that pre-made, 50 of those and listed them all at once, or was it a good ratio per week of what you were listing?
I think it was a pretty good ratio. I think I would do like usually like now, when I think back then, even I would just design list. Otherwise, I love designing. And then when it came to the listing part, I would never do it. I didn't even find that now. If I have a day of designing and then the next day I have 20 things to list.
It takes forever. Yeah.
And then it's easy to be like, I'll just do one more day of designing. And then you keep adding to that. Yeah. And then you never get to the actual listing part.
Right. Yes, exactly. So what were you kind of thinking then, like over those 5 weeks, right? I mean, I guess it felt really amazing to get that first sale, right? And then it kept selling. So that's really, really good. I mean, what's the advice or like, what's the mindset someone needs to have, like, to keep going, to keep listing things? Like, what was it that you were telling yourself where you're like, I just need to keep like I need to keep listing these things?
So the first thing I would say is definitely like, because I had some of that experience, I see like I knew you could get that those organic sales. I don't think I would have had that push without seeing that Etsy actually works. So that really helped. Looking at other people's designs, seeing themselves, like I can do that. I think looking at other
Yeah.
people and not getting overwhelmed with it really helps. And one thing I always talk to people about, like pushing forward without the results. And I didn't really have this mindset as much back then, but that period really made me think about this moving forward. Was the reason so many people are not successful with print on demand is because they can't get to those 5 weeks, those 2 months without any payoff. If everyone made their first sale within the first day, everybody would be selling on Etsy. But the competitive advantage that the people who are successful have is that ability to have that delayed gratification and do all that work without the proof it's going to work at the beginning. And that really helps me. Like even in my YouTube right now, the beginning was really slow.
Oh yeah, sure.
And it's same thing. It's really hard to push forward when it's like, oh, I'm not seeing the results. It's so easy to give up,
Right.
or the motivation to kind of waver. So I think for the people, just knowing that and thinking that's your competitive edge, is that you're going to outdo everybody else who is also failing right now,
That's
is
good.
Yeah, is why you're going to win. And I find Etsy and even just businesses in general, like you have this like flat line
Right.
and then you just hit the curve and you slowly go up. But so many people give up before it actually starts going up. We expect
Yep.
a linear growth, but like any business I found is not. It's like one catalyst, one day something happens, and then you just keep up with the momentum, but you have to keep going until you get there.
Yeah. I mean, that's such great advice. I mean, I think that's definitely plays into the number one reason that people are failing in print on demand. And that can be anywhere, and I think it can be discouraging sometimes when you look at these other shops that are really successful, or maybe you finally got approved to Amazon, but then you've only got 10 listings you can sell at first. And then, your 10 listings aren't selling, and it's because you don't know what you're really doing, right? You just got approved and you're not sure what kind of designs are selling. And so I think that like patience is just so key, and being able to, I think there's a skill, which obviously you have, in looking at these shops that are performing well and saying like, there are reasons why this shop, this print on demand merchant, this TeePublic shop, this Redbubble shop, there's a reason why they got here. So I'm gonna find out those reasons so that I can get there one day too, right? And you can do that if you give up, right? I mean, how would you know, right? Like if you give up, how would you know?
Yeah. And I always find like the beginning too is like the 1 month, you should not expect anything. Like you're just learning. Like you might think your first designs are good and your first SEO is good, but give it a month of doing this every day and you're going to look back at those. You're like, I don't know what I was thinking. Those are horrible. I've like deleted all my first listings because they're.
Oh, you deleted them? You deleted them, or did you change them?
I changed them, but some of them were just like, I could see why they never sold. Like,
Oh, sure.
some that sold, I didn't. But those ones that never sold, it was like, oh, okay, these are horrible designs, horrible mockups, like very steak. But it takes a lot of learning to do that. And even the ones of mine that have expired, like 4 months ago, have expired, and I go to see what's expired and see if I want to renew. Just 4 months between even now, it's like, oh, I should have done it this way, or like I'm going to change it up and try it this way now since I've learned a little bit more.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So I off the top of my head, I have 2 follow-up questions about this kind of 5-week period, kind of figuring out this kind of niche that works. So I guess like, what is it that you did to either find or stumble upon this niche that maybe would work? Like, what is it like? How did you even go about finding that? Like, what was the tip that you got where it was like, okay, nurse appreciation shirts are just oversaturated, or retro inspirational lettering is I mean, it has 30,000 search results. Like what was the inkling that you got where it was like, I need to find something else?
Now my process is different than back then. Then it was throw up anything I could think of and
Okay, yeah.
it works. versus now I heavily rely on using tools like eRank. Yeah, eRank is probably my most used tool, especially when like if I do want to create a nursing shirt, I can look up on eRank and then I can see all the sub niche keywords under nursing that I can use that aren't
Right.
like neonatal nurse might be one that has still tons of searches, but way less competition, especially on the ratio. Versus if you're just putting nurse across a shirt, it's going to be a lot harder. So using that eRank to kind of get that data really helps. When you're first starting, is designed for those niches that you actually know yourself. Like the breathwork one, I was able to stick out because I knew the jokes, the sayings, everything in that niche, and I could apply it to something that I know because I would buy it because I was in there.
Okay. Yeah.
Versus when you're just working on data, sometimes you might not want to design for that niche. So like there was this like one student I had, and he did his store, and it was about this career I had never heard of. And I was going into his store to do an audit, and I didn't understand any of the shirt jokes. I was like, I don't understand these. He had made 30 sales in his first month. He was the only one doing this niche. He knew the jokes. So it's really hard for other people to enter that niche and compete with you when you have the competitive advantage of being in it already. And then you can validate it with eRank.
So I guess, it would be fair to say that print on demand is only oversaturated at face value. It's only oversaturated at what you perceive to be too much competition. Mm-hmm. Where in actuality, there is going to be a multiplicity of sub niches that continue to evolve forever, right?
Yeah. And not only sub niches, but products as well, because it's not just t-shirts.
Exactly. So, I mean, there's going to be more movie styles that come out. There's going to be more different types of gaming that comes out. There's going to be more jobs and career paths that come out that, people are going to become experts in and then say, oh, well, I know what to put on this shirt. That's funny that targets this pain point or whatever. Yeah. So when you got that first sale for that shirt, you mentioned that you took that shirt or you took that design and you started kind of putting it on some other products. Now, what else is it that you did once you found out that core thing or that core phrase or whatever was working? Like, what does the next step look like for growth, right? Because I feel like we don't want to just rely on this one shirt or whatever. I mean, of course, it can be your moneymaker. And for a lot of people, I would assume that it is the case. There's a core 3, 4, 5 products that probably bring in the money. But there are also these other things that I think subsidize that really well and or make a great add-on or something. So what's the next step? Like, what is it that you did when you found that one was working? Like, what was the next step?
Yeah, so that's when I'm putting out. So again, I put it on more products, but also that I'm trying to find out what worked about that and what either how can I branch off of it? Can I do the same design, but in a different similar niche, or
a different niche entirely,
but similar enough, like maybe adjacent. So if it was breath work, maybe ice baths. If it was breath work, maybe like meditation.
Tertiary niches.
Yeah. Things that's like, okay, this group would still like this, but maybe I can switch it up a little bit.
Okay.
Or I would, and continue just designing in that niche and using similar keywords.
Yeah, on a variety of
working. Yeah, I want to specialize in it as well.
Yeah, and then you can parse that out on different products, right? Now, I would assume that maybe the products kind of have to make sense, or do they? So, I don't know because I'm not in that, and I'm not in that niche. What is it that you're thinking about product wise that makes sense in that niche? Like, I'm thinking like a shirt makes a lot of sense because you can wear it proudly, but like a journal doesn't. But like, you know what I mean? So like what goes into mind where it's like, dang, this is going to make a great sticker, shirt, maybe a hat, but doesn't make this, that, the other. Because I feel like maybe another trap is people maybe do have a lot of time and they take that design and they put it on 20 different products. However, I think that could be a waste of time. I mean, it's a plus and a negative. Like, yeah, put it on as many products as you can, but like, should you really do that?
Yeah. So from what I always say, so because in my store I'm testing multiple niches, I always say you need something that ties together your store so you don't just look like you've just gone insane throwing things up. So you should niche down either in product or in niche. So you should have a wedding shop or a general apparel shop or a general home store shop, but you shouldn't have millions of products with millions of niches. So when people come to their store, like, what do you specialize in and how can I trust that? Because do you walk into a little shop outside and they sell everything and anything, how are they going to find their target market? And how is that target market going to trust you
Right.
to specialize in one thing? So for me, like my store is a general apparel shop. So I'm not putting things on wall art. I'm not putting things on tumblers. It's t-shirts, sweatshirts, and then maybe a tote bag for my like best sellers. I'll throw it on there as well.
Okay, yeah. So that's the difference between like, a department store and a super center. Like, your shop is not necessarily, Walmart.
Yeah.
It's gonna be something like, Barnes and Nobles, very specific. It's books, right? Or whatever. I mean, so in that regard, I think that one of the biggest questions, which you slightly answered a little bit, is, can I put everything on my Etsy shop, or do I need like to open a bunch of multiple shops or whatever? Or and you can take that and you can parse it out to Redbubble, Amazon, whatever, because you can put the design on multiple products and things like that. So you're suggesting then, and if I'm just like saying it back, like in this niche that you were doing, the breath work, or what would you call ice bath? Like, I mean, I don't know, some sort of health. Yeah, like some kind of health niche or something like that. You're doing a variety of products in that niche, or you're doing a store that's based around a specific product with a bunch of niches, or do you still need to be careful and make sure that they all kind of fit? Because I feel like that feed might also look strange.
Yeah, you do need to keep them somewhat, like you don't want to have political shirts and then like wholesome, like you can't be contradicting yourself to just look like I'm selling anything and everything that makes me a profit. Like you do need to be careful on what you have in there.
Right.
Don't have opposing thoughts in there. Like things do need to be kind of tied together. Like even mine now, I do have multiple niches, but I have a feeling that the same type of person would consider
be interested. Yeah.
And that's why I do have a lot of orders that have multi-product, multiple products in them, because they're different niches, but yeah, they would still apply to the same type of person. Because I think, again, if you've gone too wild in terms of that, you're only going to be selling one at a time. You're not going to have the repeat buyers. And it can just become a little bit confusing for other people if they're contradictory.
Yeah, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. I feel like, you're going to have to keep it somewhat consistent. I mean, I feel like, there's another trap, right? I want to try and do everything, and that's what you can use that first 4 to 5 weeks for. I mean, you can try that out and see whatever is you're in your testing phase. But I feel like depending on what platform or marketplace you're on, you're not providing the platform with enough data on a specific thing to tell it where to serve your product. So you want to try to keep it, consistent enough or adjacent enough that it would still feel like home, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Even Etsy's trying to find out what you sell to find out who to show it to. So the more you start tailoring, because that's how I recommend it. Start like you're testing at the beginning, finding out what works, and then you find out what works, and you kind of branch off. And from there, you see more of what works. You branch off a little. So it's all like related in terms of feel.
Yeah. So then like when we kind of come back to the question of, is print on demand too oversaturated or is it too late? The reverse of that question is print on demand at an all-time high, which is not a negative question. A negative question is oversaturated, which suggests it's too late for you. Versus is print on demand like booming? So are you of the opinion that it is towards the complete opposite side of this spectrum. It's not actually oversaturated. It's at an all-time high, so long as you know what you're doing.
Yes, exactly. Like when I started after 2020, and if you were on there, like 2020 was known as like the print on demand boom. Like
Yeah,
people
it
were shopping
definitely
from
was.
home.
And the YouTube boom.
Yeah, yeah. And everyone told me that I missed the boat after. Like I did
Really?
interviews with like, oh, you started in 2021. Like that's crazy. How did you get sales? I'm like, it was a boom, but it's still on an uptrend. It's still going up.
Mm.
We're still at higher levels than pre-COVID. You can still be successful now. And there was a research study I was looking at like last week, and it said, yeah, the market's only growing. The amount of products that we can print on demand is growing. It used to just be t-shirts. There's thousands of products out there now, different types, like bathing suits, socks. Like it's just growing in terms of that. And as well, something that's been like growing really well is the search for customized products, which print on demand has that benefit over so many other like in-person t-shirt stores that can't do your name on a shirt.
Right.
That's becoming more and more expected and more searched for online. And that's another benefit of print on demand. But yeah, there's a lot of people doing it, but there's just still so much room. And if like hearing that it's oversaturated is the reason you're not going to do something, is the reason, again, a lot of people aren't doing it, and why you should do it. People are avoiding it because they've heard that a bunch. And if I listened to that before and not done it because I missed the boom, then I wouldn't be where I was today.
Yeah, so that's kind of a lie then, right? That we have to make sure we don't tell ourselves, because that's a prerequisite trap that happens. It's like, it's just too intense. I don't have the time. There are all these, I guess, whole checklist of lies, right? That you need to make sure that you're not telling yourself. One kind of last topic or question I want to camp out on for a second, and this may not necessarily be specific to something like Amazon, because again, you are limited in the beginning to your listing amount. Now with something like Etsy, of course, you could go 100% crazy. Same thing with Redbubble, TeePublic, Zazzle, whatever. You can list for days. I feel like one issue, and we were hinting about it a little bit earlier, is the ability to maximize your like listing capability. And what I'm kind of thinking here, what ties in is how easy it is. You can use Kittl to create things. Okay, so if we're talking specifically about print on demand, you're going to use something. You're going to use some tool, probably Kittl. Use the templates, use whatever to make your designs. Now, when it comes to the listing side of it, to really maximize and like get like we have the quality kind of being taken care of by using something like Kittl with all the illustrations, templates, whatever. But quantity is always the separate issue. That's kind of like we talked about in the beginning. We can either have endless time, we can either have endless money, or somewhere in between. We can have endless quality or endless quantity, but what we need is somewhere in between. So like what advice do you have for really emphasizing and bulking up on like the whole listing situation?
Yep. So like you said, one, working off the templates is huge. Kittl's been awesome for me for that. And like sticking out amongst competitors by using the Kittl templates. But I think the biggest thing is like kind of how I mentioned before is from the data that you already have, how can you start working off of that? So you're not starting from ground zero in terms of data. You've seen what design works.
Yeah.
So if you're seeing what design works, what elements can you grab from that to bring over to the next one? And that's why I'm also really, really big on studying bestsellers on Etsy. And it's not copy from people that copy are just, you're not going to be getting sales. You have nothing to compete with if the only thing you can do is copy the bestsellers already.
Right.
But by studying them and understanding, you can see this font is doing really good already on Etsy. This like placement is doing really well.
Okay. Wow.
So I think by doing the studies, it's making it easier to implement in your designs. And so you're not wasting time trying to guess what fonts and everything are selling, what designs are good, especially if you're not a designer and you're just throwing up any font, anything, which I've definitely seen. People are just changing the font slightly, doing these ugly fonts that like don't work. You need to study the bestsellers And you start, and just by looking at them, you start like subconsciously getting better at designing and implementing it in your own. And it helps you get out those better quality designs instead of just putting Arial on a bunch of t-shirts and wondering why you're not making sales.
Right. Yeah. Or Times New Roman or Bakersfield or Helvetica or something like that.
Yeah,
And you know, there's a time and place for that. I have a couple shirts that's like has the word ampersand, word ampersand, word. I don't know if you've seen those, but
yeah.
it's like I have a whiskey one that it's like water and yeast and rye and whatever, because I'm a big whiskey person. And it's like, I didn't buy it for myself, to be honest. Someone did buy it for me, but I was like, oh, that's funny. Like, I get it. You know what I mean? Like, I get that kind of trend. And I think it is just Helvetica probably. So when it comes to like, so that's absolutely phenomenal advice on the kind of duplicating kind of quality design side. Now, when it comes to maybe the technical side, what are the practical tips that you have for like, man, I've got these 20 designs that I know are stellar because they're niche adjacent or they're in the same principle, or I've changed the font, like you said. But goodness gracious, it takes forever to list this. What are the tips or hacks that you have for like, this is how I pump out my listings, maybe for Etsy or whatever. And, you know, take this principle and apply it. If you're going to put the same product on Redbubble or whatever, then the description's the same. But let's just use Etsy, I guess, as an example.
What I'm usually doing, like we talked about earlier, I'm researching my main keyword, and sometimes that's how I come up with niches, and I'm validating that keyword. So if it's like, I want to do a pickleball shirt, I look up pickleball on eRank. It's got the results. I've decided I'm going to design for that. So now I have at least my first keyword that I'm putting into Etsy. And Etsy is really important in terms of keywords. That's how you're found. That's how people are finding you. So a lot of people will tell me they'll do hours of SEO research to find the rest of their keywords. But I don't think you need to do that. I think you need to be more focused on what are people going to search on Etsy, and that if I showed up on the first place, they would be like, yes, that is exactly what I'm looking for. And I find the best and fastest way to do that is if you have a pickleball shirt, look up pickleball shirt and see what people are using that are ranking on page 1 without ads, no ads. What other tags are they using? They're probably using gift for pickleballer, pickleball gift. And you can go through a bunch, and usually I'll take a list of ones that competitors are using that also apply to my design. There's no point if it doesn't apply to your design, because even if someone searches it, it's high search keyword. If you're not what they're looking for, don't use it. And same thing, avoid things like those vague keywords like gift for her. If someone looks up gift for her and a pickleball shirt showed up page 1, what are the chances that that's resulting in a sale? They all have to be applicable, and some can be those long-term keywords like dad pickleballer shirt. Some can just be pickleball shirt and kind of mix those up. But I think try to do individual keyword research for every single keyword that you're trying to put in is a waste of time, when you should just be thinking, what are people going to type in the search bar?
Yeah. And so then like so when you're doing things that are in this same niche, then, you know, as long as it makes sense, are you kind of a proponent of really just doing that kind of research once, and then you can apply those same tags, or maybe jumble the way you've put the title together, or maybe swap around the description, and that's kind of how you kind of copy paste edit for these different listings? Like, is that kind of what a proponent you would be of that, or is there like, no, everyone kind of really needs to be like ultra different?
No, I'll kind of use them. I'll change it up. Like, the ones like usually I'll have my first or second keyword like exactly describing the shirt. If the shirt says pro pickleball dad, that would be my first keyword. So in another design, that's probably not going to be my first one. But the ones that overlap in terms of like the Venn diagram circle over here that are working for one, I'm going to be applying it to those as well, because gift for pickleballer can be applied to both. If they both show up, they both might be bought in that search. So I am usually a proponent like not copying and pasting my titles and tags, but there is a lot of overlap.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And so I guess like when it comes to Mockups. Now we do have mockups in Kittl, but more are coming, more variety, more features in how you can change the color, save colors, print on demand, hex codes, things like that. All that's coming for all of you that have watched this part of the interview. Now you're getting you're getting rewarded for watching this long. So thank you for sticking with us. When it comes to mockups, I think for me personally, in my own very small print on demand journey, those are actually what I take the most on. Because I can have one stellar mock-up in Kittl, and that's great. I found that the best converting way to do it is to 100% have multiple, of course, different. If it's a shirt, man, you got to show it in a variety of settings, or if it's any other kind of product, even a video converts really well. So what's the advice for that you've seen that's working with mockups? I've personally dove into this the last couple of days in seeing what works, and it's just like I can't get a straight answer. There's just so many different things, and I feel like that's just because there are so many different niches and listings and whatever. You type in, honestly though, if you type in any kind of shirt niche on Etsy, you're gonna get that flat lay with like the shoes next to it and a ruler and a bonnet and I don't know, whatever. But anyway, what have you seen that's maybe working?
So for me, I only really use the same colors on all of my listings. I have like 5 different shirts colors that I stick to, 5 different sweatshirt colors that I stick to, so I can buy or find the best mockups for those, and I save them all in a file together. And that kind of comes into my testing as well. Sometimes what I'll do, if I can't decide between either two different colors, or like if I want to do a model photo or the flat lay photo, I'll actually duplicate the listing and I'll test it with 2 different mockups.
Oh, so you've just done the listing. It's the same listing.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And I've seen that where I have some, one will kick off and one will never get sales.
Wow, I never thought to do that. I've always just gone in and changed the thumbnail on the one listing.
Yeah. Nope, I've duplicated it because sometimes especially if it's sold already, I don't want to mess with that. So I'll just duplicate it and test a brand new photo to see which one. And then you get a lot of data doing that. So now sometimes I'll see which ones, hey, this mock-up is usually getting me sales. So then I'll start implementing that as my main photo more and more. When I get a new mock-up, sometimes I'll go back to my old favorite listings because I'm a mock-up addict. I'll go on Etsy and I'll be like, oh, this one's so beautiful. This one's going to sell everything. So instead of changing out my photos, I'll duplicate my best sellers and now test with that main photo. So
that's really
cool. More people don't go crazy with this. I've seen some people duplicating like 8 times and trying a bunch of different photos. It's usually my favorite ones that I can't decide between that I'm duplicating. You don't want your store to all be just one design and have 70 listings, but they're all the exact same.
Yeah, all the same listing.
Yeah. But that's not great. But for testing purposes, especially maybe on your best sellers, could be the great way that I use to find which ones for me sell really well.
Yeah, no, that's great advice. I mean, I'm personally looking forward to how we develop the mockup feature in Kittl, because I know right after we launched that, people were like, this is great. We want all of these things. We want the ability to save colors for shirts that we know work. We want the ability to save printful color, whatever. You know what I mean? We need comfort colors, Bella Canvas, whatever. There's all this stuff, and I guess one thing that I will say though is that, a mockup is a mockup. It's never going to be perfect unless you order the shirt and take a picture of the shirt wearing it or on the floor or whatever, the way that it's actually printed. So keep that in mind. Just when, somebody may ask about the color or something like that, I would just be honest, right? And obviously you want to try to get the closest mockup representation possible to that product. So I'm just wondering, so you try not to use the kind of like default mockups. Am I right? Yeah, okay.
I'll delete all
because they're just awful.
Yeah, because even if your main photo sells, is like your main photo, sure, is your one mockup photo in there, and all the rest are the Printify ones. But if they look like, oh, that looks beautiful on the shirt, and then they see the rest, like, oh wait, that's actually probably what I'm getting. Even though it is, but the mockups aren't great. It's like when you go to a thrift store and everything's just hanging, it doesn't look as great versus when you walk into like Aritzia or a nice store and they're on the models and they're modeled already and you see how they fit on somebody, it
That is
sells.
very good analogy. I love that analogy. I will be using that. Thank you very much. That's actually very good. I've started a book of analogies. Another one of my favorite one is like, I know we haven't talked about trends and we won't because that's a whole nother video, but when you're starting out on your kind of print-on-demand journey, you can get in on trends a lot quicker than a store that's already ranked really well for a specific thing. And the best analogy I heard from that is like, it's the difference between being the Titanic and a small speedboat. Like when you're first starting out, you can turn that speedboat really, really fast.
Yeah.
But if you're headlong into your journey and you are known as the pickleball shirt lady, you're a full forge like aircraft carrier now. You are not turning but for like 2 days to turn left, right? Sweet. Well, Christina, this has been super helpful. Everyone watching, definitely let us know your thoughts down in the comments, what you think, what other kind of questions you may have for Christina. I'm sure she'd be happy to answer them. And don't forget to go check out her channel. And speaking of, if there's anything upcoming for you, anything you want anybody to know, feel free to go ahead and let people know that now. If there's something that, maybe a series you have coming up or maybe a course or whatever, feel free to go ahead and talk about that.
Yep. So I do have my course right now, and recently in the last few months launched the membership. So the membership it's 2 free months with the course purchase. That comes with bi-weekly coaching calls, live Q&As, and as well a bi-weekly research newsletter that comes out with all my research for the week, niche ideas, upcoming trends, sub-niche ideas for holidays that comes out. And it really is, like, I'm really proud of the community that we've built. We have a constant Facebook group that a bunch of us are always on. I check multiple times a day. And I've just been proud to see how active it is. Usually I go in to answer everything and everyone's just really helpful with each other. So if you are interested in some extra help, I do have that. And I would like to say as well, we are currently in the best time to start if you haven't yet.
Oh, wow.
The Q4 will come up super, super fast, and that can make you more sales than the rest of the year combined. So if people are holding off, like right now, you want to be getting Q4, it will skyrocket your store versus starting in January or February when it's your New Year's resolution. So if you can, I would get started and take advantage of the upcoming months. I'm already starting my big upticks. I'm starting to see the upwards curve in July. September, October, November are my huge months.
Great. Well, Christina, thanks so much for that. Definitely everyone go check out and subscribe to her channel and be looking forward to the new Kittl videos that she's going to do. Because again, we already discussed some of those and we've got tons of new features, a lot of goodies coming for you all. So make sure that you are excited for that. And please don't forget to subscribe to Kittl's YouTube channel. It's a red button right there. It'll take you 1 second if you haven't already. And if you're interested, join our Discord. You spoke about your Facebook and it reminded me, I always forget to talk about the Discord. We have a growing army of Kittlers over in the Discord. So come and check that out. We have a whole channel specific to POD. I'm thinking about making a whole channel specific to Etsy just because we talk about it so much. So maybe we'll do that. And yeah, we hope you all have a great rest of your day and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.
Awesome. Thank you. Bye, guys.